Hey, film fans, thank you for joining me for my review of The Last of Us Episode 1, the long awaited game adaptation of one of the greatest games of all time. Directed by Craig Mazin, who did Chernobyl, which was critically acclaimed and has a similar concept to some of the things in the DNA that The Last of Us has, and is starring Pedro Pascal as Joel and Bella Ramsey as Ellie. I'm going to break down the good and the bad of episode 1 and if you should continue watching this show. Before I get into that, let me start with the rating. The Last of Us series rated R for sex, nudity, violence, gore, profanity, alcohol, drugs, smoking, frightening, and intense scenes. That's a whole lot. From the beginning of video game adaptations happening, there's always been a struggle with not only making them good or suitable to watch, but also adapting the source material properly. We've gotten so many bad or mediocre game adaptations, whether it's movie, television, or even sometimes a comic, that at this point sometimes it felt like if it's an adaptation, let's move on by. But I think recently there's been a turn with how lucrative video games have become to changing that over and how great the narratives have been for the last 10 to 15 years. So things like Sonic, Castlevania, Arcane, and more have some been really good adaptations of video games that has brought more people who don't even play the games to liking it. So, but those games are loose narratives. Even those shows don't go book by the book with the game itself because of how loose the narrative is. The Last of Us as a video game has a specific narrative. It's not loose. It's not super open to interpretation. And the narrative in the game already felt like a movie. A lot of people felt like they were playing a movie with a lot of action and missions in it. So what does episode 1 of The Last of Us do? They recreate scenes from the game, but expand on them, change things a little bit here and there, but it captures the feel of the game in that first maybe 20 to 30 minutes and expand it into like an hour and 25 minutes. So we can get a little bit more with the characters like Sarah, who we didn't get to really see much in the game, and a little bit more of Joel and his brother's relationship, and expanding on how the outbreak in the beginning, how it escalated, where it started, how many different people are affected. Last of Us has a lot of action in it, but I feel like what they did with this, they focused on the world building, the character moments, and the story progression, because obviously we're not playing with these characters, so they're trying to get us attached to them by seeing them go through these struggles and live their day-to-day lives in this impossible situation. Things that the production does that makes this look so great and brings the game to life is the set design. Looks like it comes straight out of the game. The way they built certain things, just having the firefly painting all over the place, the buildings, the way the streets is dusty, everything is overgrown. It just looks and feels, the texture of it feels like how the game it looks like, and it should look when it's brought to life. Even the way the characters are dressed and they act and their day-to-day lives and how much of a struggle it is, I think they did a really good job there. And the world building is done really, really well. You understand from the jump what is going on. They explain the virus and how this outbreak is different from like a regular virus like a flu or anything, and how it's based on something that's in real life, something that can happen to us in real life, which makes it even more scary. Probably don't get a ton of action in this episode 1 because it focuses so much on the characters and different moments of world building. The actions we do get promises that the further we get into the series and the more actiony it gets as they travel across America, Ellie and Joel, that it will be brutal, it will be raw, just like the game. We got a little taste of it, and I can see that they're really sticking to that and not making it too flashy. It looks like a real gory mess that's they're trying to survive as best as they can. Most important thing in an adaptation, whether you get the set design right, the clothes, the world building, the story, is the characters. The characters have to feel like how the characters feel in the game or a book or a comic. That's the only way you're going to get to sell it for the people who are fans of it. And I got to say, I think that these characters in good hands by the creators of this show and by the actors who are are playing these characters. Gotta give a big shout out to Pedro Pascal, who plays Joel. Not only the way they styled his hair, his beard, his clothes, he resembles Joel as much as possible, but his mannerisms, the way he acts, he plays this survivalist who tries to survive at any means necessary, cuts off his emotions after something that he went through tragic in the beginning of this show. Because the show starts off, and I believe think it's in 20 years, so I think that's 2003, and something tragic happens to him and his daughter, and 20 years pass. You can see he's a different man. He's older, he's gruffer, his emotions are cut off, and Pedro Pascal plays all those moments really well. The physicality, the way you can tell everything that's going on in Joel's head just based on his expression, his voice inflection, his mannerisms, the way he interacts with certain characters. It just seems like he, even though they told him not to study the game, whoever, I know Neil Druckmann is involved, and I think that's a great thing, really got him to get down the character really well. I'm really excited to see how he does the character more and more as we get deeper into this series, but this is a really great start. And Bella Ramsey, who was a very, very controversial pick for Ellie, because a lot of people think that she doesn't look like the character as much as Pedro Pascal looks like Joel. But I gotta say, I think she did a really good job, and I see why they picked her. She captures Ellie's spunk, her wild, foul mouth, and her curiosity. That was especially a lot of the curiosity that was in the beginning of the game for a character who was locked off from the world. She was born during this virus, so she doesn't know how the world was and the freedom that people have. And you can see her, getting to interact with people and being excited about it, and but also having a lot of edge to her as well. And I think Bella Ramsey captured all that really well. I'm really excited to also see how she develops her character and how she develops Ellie as the series progresses. So this might just be a problem I have. I'm not 100% sure. Let me know in the comments below if you had this problem as well. But I felt like a lot of the parts of the show I was more observing than being captured or being absorbed by it, because I guess because I already know what's going to happen. Being a big fan of the game, The Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2 are in my top 10 favorite video games of all time. I've played them multiple times. I've seen people play them multiple times. So I know these scenes really well. And I was excited with them recreating certain scenes, but I felt like I was observing a lot of it and not being totally drawn into the show like how I usually would be if it's something I don't know about already, or even if it's like a Marvel or DC adaptation where they don't do it by the book exactly, but take little elements from it. So you're like, oh, I know that part, but for the most part, it's different. I don't know if that's going to be a big issue, but the parts that they did expand on, I did feel myself being captured in by things that they changed. I was like, oh, this is different. This is meaty. So hopefully as the series progresses, they do more things like that where it's not a total recreation or one by one. I do like that they did that, and I did appreciate that, but I also want to be lost in the show as well. Who's this for? Should you watch it now? And my overall feelings. To start, who's this for? If you're a fan of The Last of Us, if you're a fan of The Walking Dead, if you're a fan of zombie content, infected content, horror content, things like that, this is a definite must watch. It's a really great pilot to start off the show, and it made me excited to see what's going on. And I think it will make people who are even not fans of The Last of Us game excited to watch the series week to week, especially if you like zombie horror content with a little bit of familiar drama and political stuff going on as well. This revolution with the Fireflies. There's a lot of different things going on in the show other than just zombies. Even though there's not a lot of zombies in the first episode, you can tell that it's going to ramp up, and this is like a slow build into the craziest parts of the series. It didn't blow me away and I wasn't my mind blown or anything. I do think this was a really great start to this series, and it can really build off this foundation and become an all-time series. I'm really excited to see what happens in the following weeks in each episode, and that's what a pilot is supposed to do, make you excited to watch it week to week, and I definitely am. I'm excited to see Joel and Ellie's relationship build, how they treat the other characters, if they change certain things, or how they die, or if they survive, and see how they recreate some of the best sequences from the game. With that said, I'm going to give this episode 1, this pilot, a B+. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What would you rate episode 1 of The Last of Us on HBO? Let me know in those comments down below. Did you catch the Easter eggs, the sound effects, the way they use the music, especially a certain part towards the end? They use that music when somebody sees you for the first time and they catch you while you're selfing. I thought that was super dope. Let me know in the comments below if you caught that part as well. If you liked my review, hit that like button and hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you can be notified my reviews, reactions, and ranking lists coming. I'm going to be reviewing The Last of Us week by week, so you definitely want to tune into that. And I also have other reviews and trailer reactions coming, so you can watch more of my content right now.